All right, let's get started. I'd now like to call the July 16th, 2025 Longmont Sustainability Advisory Board meeting to order. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes, Robert Davidson.
Present.
Daniel Leonard.
Present.
Corkett Oneron.
Here.
Jeff Gorick.
Present.
Ethan Augreen.
Here.
Alex Solomeo.
Here.
Alyssa Harding is not able to join us this month. For staff, we have Lisa Knobloch. Here. Becky Doyle.
Here.
Susan Bartlett. Here. Heather McIntyre is here. We have Jane Turner.
Here.
And Councilmember Botkin.
Here.
Cherry of quorum.
All right. We've got our late acknowledgement statement, inclusion statement, and then we're going to do some intros for everybody after that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection that the first peoples have with this land. It is our commitment to face the injustices that happen when the land is taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. In our inclusion statement, the Sustainability Advisory Board embraces diverse perspectives from its members and the public. To create an inclusive space where everyone feels welcome to share their opinion, the board asks that all attendees listen and speak with respect and avoid attacks on individuals or specific group identities. And before we move on to the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, we're going to take a moment to get to know people who are here.
Sure.
Not sure what did you have a vision for that, Lisa? Or
No, I
some new
just want
members,
to,
or-
I think if we want to just do an introduction of our new members, and then maybe we could do, I know we just did roll call, but I think it'd be great if everyone can do a little more personal introduction, that would be great. But why don't we start with our new folks, Alex or Jeff, do either one of you want to jump in?
You're deferring to me? Thanks. All right. My name is Jeff Gorick. I have lived in Longmont for 10 years now. And I work as a kind of a meteorologist. I've been in the weather business my entire life. And the weather business, I always say, is inherently sustainable, basically. So you need to know what's happening, you know. But I've been always very business focused. And what I've seen in the last 10 years is that kind of corporate America has taken on kind of a sustainability kind of angle. And then sometimes it's good and sometimes it's a little bit misplaced and sometimes it's just talk. And I'm sure you all feel that same way because you're here to not just talk but actually put things in action. So I'm really excited to be part of it. But just kind of with my kind of background, I hope to provide some helpful guidance and I don't know, just to be helpful.
Thanks, Jeff. Welcome.
Alex Solomeo, 8-year Longmont resident, moved to Colorado in 2002 from New Jersey, and in the Gunnison country, sort of became a rancher and have sort of stayed there, but brought myself out here and excited to see process and how this all works and what we are, enabled to be a part of.
Welcome. I'll start on this side and go around.
I'm Robert Davidson. I've been on the board now for 4 years. I've worked in the sustainability space for the last couple of decades, primarily as an energy engineer doing energy efficiency projects, mostly for schools. So it's been a fun time.
I'm Daniel Leonard. I've been in Longmont for 5 years. I'm third generation Coloradan. I work for the University of Colorado Boulder. I work in our research enterprise. On our communications team, particularly, I help researchers start new companies, our office helps new researchers start new companies or license tech with a huge portfolio of climate and sustainability solutions, as well as a ton of climate research. We work with NOAA, NIST, series, all at the federal labs as well. That's me.
I'm Corkett Oneron. I've been in Longmont 10 years now. I'm an urban planner, architect. I have my own practice, and I also am in general faculty in University of Colorado, Denver. I served as a member for the Historic Preservation Commission of Longmont and Planning and Zoning in Longmont. And now I'm here.
Making your rounds on the boards and commissions.
Ethan Green. I've been on the board now for 1 year and in Longmont for 7 years. completed a master's degree in environmental leadership at NRPA in Boulder. I've been in Boulder County almost 10 years and working in environmental space for a couple decades. And completed permaculture design certificate many years ago. And also from New Jersey. I didn't know we have that in common.
Matthew Popkin, City Council Liaison for the Sustainability Advisory Board for, I guess now, 5 months now. My background is in energy and environmental policy, and in my day job I advise cities on their clean energy transition and sustainability practices. I've done that for over a decade. I have previously served on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Longmont and currently serve on City Council. And also, outside of my day job and this, I serve on the board for Jack's Solar Garden, or the Colorado Agrivoltaics Learning Center, so combining solar, farming, and agricultural education.
My name is Jane Turner. I'm the city's oil and gas and air quality program manager. But I have a PhD in environmental engineering, and so I also advise the city more generally on environmental contamination.
I'm Susan Bartlett. I'm with Longmont Power and Communications, which is the city's municipally owned electric utility. And my team is primarily engaged in customer engagement, energy efficiency, distributed energy resources, and probably share lots of familiarity with the work that Robert does.
I'm Becky Doyle. I'm the Chief Strategic Integration Officer for the city, which means that we try to get all the services that the city provides to use tools and technologies and frameworks, that make us, better, faster, stronger. So I get to help clear the decks for our sustainability folks to do their good work, as well as technology initiatives, project management.
I'm Lisa Novak. I'm the sustainability manager. I've been with the city 9.5 years or so now, and it's the responsibility of my team to work with folks across the organization. We do a lot of community-facing work as well, and to make sure we are on track to meeting our sustainability goals. So we interface a lot with city council and a bunch of other folks.
And Lisa is also our staff liaison.
Yes, sorry.
My name is Heather McIntyre. I'm an executive assistant in our strategic integration department. So I primarily support our assistant city manager for the utilities, and then all of his leadership team, and provide support to the Sustainability Advisory Board as recording secretary, in addition to the Water Board as well. I've been here a little over 7 years.
All right. We got a good group, and we're excited to have you guys joining us. So. Up next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Did anybody have any changes or corrections or anything they thought needed to be made?
I did have one correction. Under 10A, Vice Chair Leonard reviewed Board Member Ethan Aubrey's suggested edits. We just need to add Ralph's edits as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Board Member Grosswald.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other suggested changes or modifications? If not, do we have a motion for that approval?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Well, all those in support of that? Okay, I think that was everyone. No one opposed? No. Okay. Great. Easy enough. Okay, are there any agenda revisions or documents from years ago? Okay. All right, well, the first item up in our general business is the Distel Toll potential land exchange update. Becky, are you?
Sure.
It's on the first tab up there.
Perfect. Okay. So, so this is a really complex issue that's before the city council right now, and we thought that it would be helpful, to this board, including the new members, just to hear, maybe for the first time, what has happened so far. At this time, City Council has not asked for the Sustainability Advisory Board to weigh in here because right now we're in a process that's pretty prescribed by code, but this is just an opportunity to make sure that everyone's caught up to what's happening on this issue, in case it does come to you for some kind of opinion down the road. Any other thoughts or?
So from a prescription standpoint in the code, the reason, kind of the thematic reason here is that it's a land use based issue at this stage, even though there are other sustainability implications down the road potentially depending on where this goes. So important to understand, hopefully this is helpful for understanding the context of this, and then should this advance further and for particular uses, then that would be a particular place where council would probably look for SAB's perspective.
And at the moment, it has been specifically tasked to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Correct. Yeah. So the first kind of
There we go.
the first
Jump the gun.
It's like you were ready for this.
So Longmont's been fortunate to have a really robust open space program for the past 25 years. And ordinarily when we buy open space, when we use open space funds to purchase property, it is not with the intention of ever letting go of that property. But there are certain circumstances in which we may find it necessary to be able to sell or to exchange property that we have purchased with open space funds. So there is a process that's defined within the code called the disposition of open space that lines out how that process occurs. So this is where we are right now. So this is the section of the code that talks about it. Obviously, there's a little bit more to this chapter, but this is kind of the heart of it, which is that we have to have defined a public purpose. Like there has to be a good reason, that we're suggesting that we would do something like this. And there's some reasons are lined out there within the code. But public purpose is the thing, and then that it goes to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for their opinion, although the eventual decision lies with City Council. So, just to know that's how that process works. Whoa, how do I back up?
I think right, maybe? Up or down?
It's
Is it
just
on
going.
its own?
No, I'm not even touching it. Here, can I have that thing?
Try. Oh, wow. What?
Well, that was fun. So, speaking of public purposes, some of the issues, the community goals that are potentially involved in this land swap are these things that are listed here. There is, of course, we're wanting to preserve and restore open space, provide housing opportunities, stormwater retention. There's a whole bunch of things that are going on here, right? Potentially. And we'll look at some maps that kind of talk about what those things are. But, this is a cute thing we keep including in these slides. It's all a balance, right, between how do we accomplish a lot of these things and try to meet multiple aims with, kind of single projects potentially. So in this area, and just to orient you here, so County Road 1 here is called out. So this is way in the southwest. This is out in Weld County. Southeast. Did I say west? Yeah, southeast. So south of 119, east of County Line. And so there's two pieces of property that we're talking about here. One we refer to as the distal property, which is this guy here, and then the toll property, which is here. So this map also marks other areas where the city either owns them or has an interest. I would assume that's a conservation easement or something. But note all these other gray areas are privately held, so those are not public property.
May I ask where Sandstone Ranch falls within this?
It is.
That's my point of reference here.
Here?
Okay.
Just to the right, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah, right here.
Thank you.
No, it's further.
That's further.
Further.
This guy? I was like,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
a pretty
know.
big chunk.
Because
Without the satellite imagery.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
thanks, James.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah. See, here's the outlet of the farm. Good. All right. So, one of the big issues that you hear us talk about is a potential for a composting facility out here. And Boulder County did publicly say recently that that the Distal site is the primary site that they're looking at for a regional composting facility. However, the Distal site cannot be used for as a composting facility while it is owned by the open space program. So in January, actually, let's start here. So here's what the existing ownership of Distal and Toll look like. So those funky shaped parcels, open space owns all of the Distal parcel, which if you go out and look at the Distal parcel, it's currently a gravel mining facility. So there's a parking lot, there's piles of material, gravel things happening in the Distal site. And then in the Toll property, it has been mined for gravel, so it looks a little bit like the surface of the moon. But there's a restoration.
Is there an asphalt factory?
What?
Is there an asphalt factory?
On the Distal site? Yes.
It's part of the gravel processing plant. They do have a asphalt plant that's common, that they would take gravel and entrain it and make asphalt.
Yeah. So that's what's happening here on the Distal site. When these parcels were purchased in 2019, the Distal parcel was purchased in full by Open Space, because Open Space had owned an option to purchase it for a good 20 years and exercised it fully a week before that option expired. So, or just a few days before the option expired. The Toll property also became available at that time. It wasn't part of the original option that the city held to purchase the Distal property, but when the city was offered the opportunity to purchase Toll, they decided to do that, not really knowing exactly what the plan was for the use of Toll, but knowing that we had some municipal uses that didn't have a home exactly. However, at the time, these green pieces we knew would be better used as open space. So Open Space bought this 40-acre parcel at the top of Toll, and then the riparian corridor that would be the required setback for any activity that would happen on Toll. And then the rest of the Toll property was purchased by utility funds that we thought may have an interest in future uses out there, such as construction material holding facilities, or who knows what. There was no specific plan at the time. So in January, with the idea that there is a potential to put a composting facility on the Distal site, council looked at this kind of option to trade some of the acreage on the Distal site for acreage on the Toll site. So this was the first scenario that was presented to council as an option. The idea being, it would be municipal uses in the brown areas and open space in the green. You can see the setbacks that were discussed at the time there. So this is what they had looked at on January 14th when the matter was referred to PRAB. So additional options were discussed at that first meeting with PRAB in February, including
Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Yes, Parks and Rec Advisory Board in February. Including kind of shifting those setbacks, restoring a larger portion of Distal to open space, etc. And the scenarios discussed continue to evolve based on the public input over the ensuing months. So the scenario that's currently under consideration is this kind of third one here. Same general idea where there's the swap of acreage, but you can see how the lines and the uses have shifted somewhat.
Can you describe what the buffer is?
Which
Like the striped area?
So the idea was that if there is some open space, we wouldn't want utilities activities to be happening right up to that border. So there would be a setback that would keep the utilities activities away from the open space. It would continue to be owned by utilities, but it would be treated basically, and it would look like open space. So probably, grasses.
I've noticed that the access road goes straight through the buffer, so will the road be moved or?
So this is still conceptual, certainly. We haven't identified the exact place that a site would be because in its current status, there's zero possibility for a composting facility, right? With the current ownership of open space, we can't go 5 steps forward and really get into those levels of details. But items like a road or a berm or some fences or something like that, I think all of those could potentially be part of a buffer. Again, this is really conceptual at this point because we don't have a current land ownership to even really continue with a lot more detail.
Right. So if council should choose to move forward with this swap, and there's an allowed land use here of a potential composting facility, we would move forward with site use planning, phase 2 environmental, and all those steps that would be required to get the permitting and everything required to operate something like that. At this point, no one knows any of that.
Can I ask that I believe it's water storage between the two properties? Who
Yes.
owns that?
That's a really good. It's a private owner.
Yeah, my understanding is that those ponds are owned by those communities there. They are former gravel pits, and those types of ponds are very common along the riverways in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So you see a lot of those, and obviously those neighbors really like those kind of features.
So they're for their recreational use,
Yeah.
they're not industrial use.
Yeah, and there's a larger one that's been here to the
Right.
east.
Yeah. They're all over out there.
Yeah.
But some of them are industrial use, which is
I don't think that this has any additional information other than the total acreage, but you can kind of see the setbacks that are proposed.
Can you just go back to that? Because I do think it shows like the net would be
5 extra acres.
of open space. Yeah.
Yeah, but in general, pretty
comparable.
pretty across the board. So in 2019, at the time of the transaction, a phase 1 environmental assessment found a few things that were certainly expected for the type of activity that was happening out on this site. So that was part of the transaction, known about by City Council at the time that the purchase was made. The company that is currently operating out there does have responsibility for environmental remediation, and we're continuing to, the city continues to work with them on what that looks like, the timelines, etc. Anything you'd add, Jane?
Yeah, just that these are areas that were flagged as potential concerns. The two on the left side, so a storage tank that may not have had as much secondary storage and a vehicle maintenance area that had a little bit of sloppy gasoline usage. This was a previous owner operating at the time of the phase 1. We have reached out and verified to the current operators, and they have addressed these issues. On the right, that's an oil and gas spill. There were some wells, they're now plugged, but they were on the east side of the property. All of that was remediated under the purview of the state, so that's sort of history at this point.
Was there a recommendation in the phase 1 ESA
Specifically for what?
for the property? I think the recommendation was to do a phase 2 ESA.
There were multiple recommendations, I think, in the phase 1, and
I think there was just one that was to do a phase 2 ESA.
I don't think there was any kind of a timeline recommended for that. We certainly plan to do one. but, you know, I don't know if you want, so a phase one is more of a paper study, right? They go out and visit the site, but they're really looking more at records. And if something is flagged that we believe to be an immediate concern, certainly we're going to follow right up. A phase two is a very different level. It's going out there, it's boring, it's not just taking soil samples of the surface. We're talking about probably at least $50,000. Now, of course, we want to be responsible with taxpayer dollars. We would prefer that the operator out there do that kind of testing rather than us take it on. So unless we feel that there's some sort of a need to, or rather it's the time in the process to do that, you know, we're not going to spend money unnecessarily on quite an expensive investigation.
Board Member Irene, as we talked about separately, part of the intent of a phase two environmental site assessment is typically corresponds with the reuse timeline and kind of the reuse planning process. So I think it is important for us to think about, hey, what are the recommendations from a phase one environmental study, but also making sure that that's in service of the ultimate reuse purpose, because what you would clean up can vary based on what the reuse actually is.
So that's what we know today. Some other, ongoing issues that would be managed, or are being managed out here include the wildlife habitat. This is if you've been out here, a large eagle habitat. Lots of roost areas, and you can see they're marked along the creek. The roost and nest area that we're most concerned about. Most of this activity is happening outside of the half-mile buffer there. Now, I'm not a wildlife expert. This is analysis that's been done by our natural resources folks, but definitely something that we are keeping in mind, both for any construction that would happen there and disturb potential nesting sites, and we're really thinking about the eventual use of the site.
I have a question. If the eagles moved their nest, like they moved their nest south and it was closer than a half mile, could that potentially alter the requirements of the municipal use of the property?
It could potentially temporarily alter some things during the development of the site. I don't think that, I'm not sure that in the long run it would do anything. The eagles move over here. So there, there's all kinds of roost areas there that they're in one, they're over here this year, and then the next year they're using a different one. So there are some quiet periods for construction during their nesting times, or we would be working with CPW and using their guidance. Correct me if I'm saying you're there.
No, I think that's right. Our open space staff has a long commitment and good relationships with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and they do try to keep up on that, right? So right now, to have CPW come out and do an analysis when we don't actually have a timeline for a compost facility is a bit premature, because we want to, like you pointed out, we want to know what's happening at the time that we're doing construction. Where are the eagles now? And get that advice and carry out their guidance, not in kind of an outdated way.
And so if we go ahead with this, maybe if I'm hearing this right, interpreting these results right, moving ahead with these changes would actually reduce the industrial activity in the area, correct? Is that what this is telling us?
From a historical standpoint?
It depends on how far back you go and how far forward, because we are talking about potential construction of composting facility,
right.
And there would continue to be like truck traffic kind of along like the road that they would use is that sort of diagonal one at the bottom there, but that's even further away from the eagle nesting area. Okay. So, but it's certainly the sort of like factory type activity and the asphalt, yes, that would all cease.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, but in talking to you, there's also a longer-term commitment to restoration to open space of these sites that have been formerly industrial, that, as Becky said, is currently like the service of the moon or whatever. It's like not what you think of when you're like, I'm
Yeah.
going to go for a hike on this open space property. It's not available,
Yeah.
for that. So there'd be restoration that would be involved in this process.
And those types of activities take a lot of years. So I do want to be clear that there are various timelines at play here. When Distal was originally purchased by the open space, they knew that at some point in the future, that gravel mining plant would close its doors, and they had a vision long term that it would become what we think of as an open space. Exactly when they will close their doors, will they continue to operate for a little while the compost is getting going? All those timelines are yet to be set, and those are based on conversations and negotiations between the city and a private company. So.
Here's a good image of that toll property and the surface of the moon look that I was talking about. How that's the bare soil there. It's very difficult to walk over because it's different pits that were excavated in like this grid type fashion. So just to get an idea of kind of what it feels like out there. So one thing that we would be able to do on the toll program, which would be a benefit to the open space program, is that we do have a water storage right that can be used on the property. So in that area that's already been excavated, we would be able to do like the neighbors have done and store some water there, which could be used for open space properties. And water storage for their existing water rights is something that would be really helpful to the open space program. So that's fun. So
That's a large quantity of water storage.
yes.
How conventionally does the open space utilize water for their land? Because generally I see more dry landscapes than actually irrigated
Yeah.
and things like that. So when you say water storage for open space lands, how do you mean?
We have several open space properties that are in agricultural production. So we have ag leases, and so I think a lot of the water would be used for those agricultural properties. And then a bit weird because we're doing irrigation. Sounds like what Jane's looking at me like that. I don't.
Well, that is one of the goals of the open space programs, is to preserve some of the history of the area and to keep the view sheds open. And for lands that have been farmed for a lot of years, they don't do well very quickly with just trying to turn them over to native grasses. And so we have continued to support farmers and have these tenant leases. Most of those properties do come with their own water rights, and when the city purchases a property like that that's supposed to be farmed, we like to get the water with it. We do have a couple of properties that are dry right now, and the open space program desperately needs to find a water source to make them good ag properties.
And so by the city storing water in place A, they can then allocate water from a different source to feed it to a
Right.
different
You can do
farm.
some trading and some moving things around. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So we try very hard not to do the buy and dry thing, but there are properties where it's already been separated.
And, as someone who is generally just not very super impressed with open space like stewardship, would there be a plan to utilize some of this water to enhance the area itself, or just sort of the conventional has-been restoration plan, like anything accelerated to, create more offsets, go a little further, utilize water, roots, soil to, derive ecological benefit?
For that particular property?
I mean, this one or the one next to it, or just anywhere. Like, I hear it going to the farmer, which is great too, minus that we're in a place where farmers are only farming feed corn, sugar beets, and things of that nature, right? So we're not actually, when we say we're sending water to farmers, yes, but that's not coming back to the community, because that food it's not food, unless you're full circle, right? The only big guy really growing food. Yeah. And water's a big one, and yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like I say, I guess I see that ability to like utilize what you would store to genuinely enhance that which you own.
I haven't heard any specific discussion of that from the open space team, because they do really try to focus on very resilient plants that are going to do okay without water.
Right.
But I think just having a pond there, if you can imagine a trail around it or a place that people can go and recreate, I think that enhances it in its own way.
I don't think there's a plan for surface recreation, though.
I haven't heard anything like that.
Longer term. So, great questions. Okay, so as we mentioned, City Council initially referred this to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board in January. Parks and Rec talked about it in February, and then again, tabled it for a bit, and made their recommendation last month. So City Council's original direction was to return with PRAP's recommendation on July 22nd, which is next week. However, there's a changed condition, which will mean that there's an executive session next week, and that the actual public meeting where this will be considered will be in August. So just for your information, this won't be on the agenda, or isn't on the published agenda for next week.
So what is staff's recommendation?
Staff's recommendation, well, I mean, it's really, I think that, I'm not sure if it's changed at all. Whatever is happening this week may change what the overall recommendation is. It's really a City Council decision. I think we may have a gentle recommendation because it's been consistent with their previous direction to staff to work with Boulder County on composting, that we think that this is the only viable location for that. But it's up to council whether they want to go through with the swap.
We didn't talk about the Bigelow property in the presentation before, but I'll just add a little clarity. It's a small little triangle. If you go back to the map for a second, just kind of point it out.
We skipped over that.
That's okay, just for people's awareness. I think it's the triangle in that
right.
elbow of Distal on the left side there.
No, just up a little higher.
Is it just
this
that one?
this
Thank you.
triangle?
Yeah, just next to the elbow. And that was directed by council to be purchased from the private landowner there. The exact direction for that use is not clear, but I don't think it'll be for any of the public works facility purposes that we discussed there. It's probably more operating as a buffer land between the neighboring open space and the distant property.
Yeah, to hopefully reduce any of the disruption to neighboring.
I mean, I can tell you my bias on that, which is I intend to direct it to be operated as open space, personally. Just it's intended to be a buffer. I intend to direct that, but I'm one of 7.
Is Distal in the floodplain, and did it flood in 2013?
There's a small portion on the north side of Distal that is in the 100-year floodplain. I'd have to pull that up. I might have to map. But you can see that north of Distal, that's the St. Vrain, so it's closest to the creek up there. And it's just on the northwest corner. There's a little bit of floodplain up there, which is, part of the reasoning for the proposal saying, hey, let's keep the north side of Distal as open space. It's the part that's closest to the creek, and that's always where the most ecological value is too, right? So that's the idea of keeping that up there open space. And then you can see on this map that there is more open space or conservation easement type property to the north of that, so it kind of blends in with those other areas to the north.
And considerations about draining and protecting the site would be part of that permitting and land use process that would happen if the swap goes forward.
Do we know the groundwater level on Distal?
I'm gonna say it's about 10 to 12 feet down. If told, that's dug out right now. As you said, it looks like the surface of the moon, but what you can't tell from the aerial is that it's a big hole. And so when they mine, they sort of are actively pumping groundwater out so it's not getting in the way. And what that does is it draws down the local groundwater levels. And so what the current groundwater level is not what the groundwater level in the future will be when all the mining ceases and the pumping stops.
On Toll or on Distal? I'm asking about Distal.
It's about the same.
Because there was a geotechnical report done last year for the warehouse construction, and they did 7 boring holes, and they found groundwater at 2 to 9 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they also said that it's being dewatered currently due to the industrial activity. And so when they stop dewatering, then that could actually raise the water level even further.
Is there a concern there, or?
Yeah, I think there's a concern with like compost leachate, and just in general, when the water level is that high, that means there's a great need for engineering controls and planning to prevent contamination of groundwater.
I think all of those things will be absolutely considered, because I strongly feel that the city believes just as passionately as you do that we do not want contaminated compost. We are going to follow all the rules to a T. We're going to do the tests necessary to make sure that that does not occur.
It's not just contaminated compost, but also contaminated water, groundwater.
Yeah, and I think there may be some composting methods that the city, I know, is considering and looking at with Boulder County that are maybe not what you would typically envision for composting. Static aerated piles, for example, has membranes that cover it and I believe go underneath as well. So the leachate's collected. It's just much more controlled and engineered than what you might think of with backyard composting or open piles that are being turned mechanically. The city's right now leaning towards processes that are going to be less odor, less potential for spreading in the wind, keeping them as encapsulated as possible.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting up to speed. I spent the last couple of days trying to get up to this. You said, I believe, Becky, you said that Boulder County had their eyes on this site as this is the optimal site. The site's in Weld County.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just kind of wondering why. Okay, it's like we want it near us but not in us, is this sort of thing. So I'm sure there's background that people have, and you don't have to go into great detail, but that comes up as just a question in my mind of, okay, Boulder, I get it, we're in the same county-ish, but why was it the perfect site?
I don't know that there's any site that's perfect.
Right.
This is just, this is a site that is owned by one of the participating municipalities.
Okay.
And I think that's, if you've been following the composting developments over the last few years, you'll know that there was another site that was under consideration that was in Boulder County that was not owned municipally, and that did not go well. So I think that they were really trying to restrict their options to places that were already under government ownership. And we are in both Boulder and Weld counties. So that is part of our portfolio at the moment. It's weird.
Is there an option that it could support communities in Weld County as well, or is it? Knowing this is all extremely hypothetical, but is there the potential where that composting facility could serve both counties?
I think that's possible, based on the preliminary study results out of Boulder County, and I'm speaking completely out of turn here. But there's the acreage requirements for the composting generated by Boulder County could be very easily handled by this site and probably from other communities as well. So that would really be just kind of down to that intergovernmental opportunity at some point.
And I think for Longmont, as one of the working on this, we're looking at it in terms of how does this benefit our residents. And like Becca mentioned, we have residents in both Boulder and Weld County. And, we want something nearby so that we can decrease transportation costs and basically just have a much more sustainable setup for composting. There is definitely a theoretical potential in the future to make it a much more regional composting facility, but again, it's so easy to get 5 steps ahead with this, and we're really just trying to stay on the step that we're on. I will say though, we have reached out to Weld County planners. They've expressed no concerns about this. It fits with the current zoning. Surprisingly that they didn't say what Boulder County, they were like, oh, we have similar goals, we would like to work with you guys in the future potentially. So we have not heard that concern from Weld County planners.
But yeah, currently we are fortunate to have obviously our curbside composting program, and we are driving our compost material out to Keensburg to Amor remains. So this would be an improvement as far as yeah, the closer part of Weld County.
What happens if city council doesn't approve this?
Then it doesn't go forward.
And so then the land would continue to be used as it is
Current
being
form.
used?
Yeah, the current direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did say that at some point the gravel mining operations would stop, regardless of what happens with this relationship, right?
So, 30, 50 years in the future, it's going to be restored to whatever it was going to be restored to, regardless. So, great questions. If no more questions, we just wanted to make sure you had sort of seen all of that information and knew when it was coming back to council, which is August 12th, not July 22nd. Those things are forever moving.
Okay. And then I want to know, and Becky, jump in to correct me if I'm wrong, but so Becky talked about the ordinance that prescribes the steps that we need to follow with land disposition in particular is tasked to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. If all of this does move forward and this does become a site in which we are considering it for composting, that is much more within the umbrella of this board, and so there is opportunity in the future for this to come back. I like to bring up some great points about the water use. I think there's some opportunities to talk more expansively about what this site some of these uses might be in the future as well. So this is part of why we want to keep you all kind of informed in this, because it is tangential very much to sustainability. As Becky mentioned, there's a lot of sustainability goals and things that are connected to this work as well. So not to just drop in and drop information on you and then slip, but it's part of the bigger picture context and conversation.
Thank you all so much.
Well, up next on our agenda would be the public invited to be heard, but unless there's someone who's been out in the hallway, we don't have anybody. So items from staff would be next. Let's see, we've got the 2025 board work plan.
Let's see if I can utilize this touchy little mouse. It's the second time today I've had a very touchy computer. Let's see, I'm actually going to open this to the desktop. It'll probably be easier to see. I just wanted to take a few minutes, not too much time, but as we have thank you, new board members, and I sent this to you all via email as well, but I just thought it would be a good time for all of us to just kind of do a mid-year check-in on where we're at with our work plan and our agendas, with the caveat that a lot of these things always shift and change, so we do our best to lay them out for the year, knowing that new opportunities that we didn't anticipate come forward that we want to slot in, and some things need to move around just by nature of how things work. For our new folks, every year at the beginning of the year, we talk about what are the council's priorities, what's happening in the sustainability realm, and then based on y'all's interest and expertise, what are the topics or issues we want to cover for the year, and then I do my best to lay these out, and then work on bringing forward the right folks and the right information for you all to sometimes they're information items, but we definitely work to identify the opportunities where you all can do your job, which is provide feedback to City Council so that they can make informed decisions on sustainability issues. So this is what I usually utilize to map all of that out. As you'll know, also, I'm sure Heather informed you all, but for our new board members, last year or January, I think it was, we voted to, we've been in a transition period during COVID. This group was 100% virtual for quite a while, a couple of years. And then in the last year or so, we've started to shift that virtual schedule still worked for some of our board members, but we recognize the importance of also being together in person. And so the current way that this is set up is that we meet together in person the first meeting of every quarter, and then the other 2 meetings for that quarter are virtual. That's something I imagine when we get to January of next year, we will revisit this when we talk about where do we post agendas and bylaws and those sorts of things. So just so you all know, that's how this is configured for this year, and that is a decision for you all to make if at any point in time you want to change that. So that's why you'll see these ones in person, the other ones are virtual. So we're in the July meeting, and we have these items as we talked about. So reviewing our work plan, welcoming new members. I'll talk about your feelings statement, and then the distal toll conversation that we just had. Looking at August, is this big enough for folks? Come on, you will see stuff, but let me know if you can't see it. Looking forward to the toward the second half of the year anyway. In August, we'll provide you with some mid-year progress information. That'll probably be pretty short and mostly an info item pointing you to our Longmont Indicators webpage, because the bigger, pretty substantive conversation is going to be building code recommendations. We've talked to you all about this here and there for quite a while. We are now finally ready I just got the report this morning from the consultants we've been working with that are analyzing scenarios for us that then we will take to City Council August 26th for direction, and we want to bring that to you all for feedback to share with City Council. So that is going to be a really substantive meeting, and so I want to devote pretty much the whole meeting to that conversation.
Hey, so quick question for you on that.
Yes.
So building code updates, to your point, they're going to be quite hefty and substantive there. I know some previews have been given to SAB in the past, I believe, as they have in the council. I'm just curious, especially for the new members, what kind of pre-reading can be sent on that? What kind of materials can be sent in advance?
Yeah, we'll make sure you have. We've been working with the consultant we've been working with on that. The report that I just got today, it's 47 pages, and I'm not going to send that to you all. We'll work to distill that down and simplify that as much as possible so that I can provide the background information for folks that want to go deep, but enough information that you can do some pre-reading to come to that with some thoughts. I'm going to be honest with you all. You all will be a little bit of a test case for how well we achieve that before we go to City Council. So hopefully you all can come with that pre-reading. We will make sure to give you all enough time because it is substantive, and I want you all to be well informed for that conversation. I recognize that this is a very specialized topic. Not everyone has expertise in this area. It's an area that I've learned a ton about just going through this process, and so just know that we're going to be looking. Oh, Susan got washed out. Bring your questions, and we'll get into it as much as we need to, so that you all again feel confident in sharing your feedback with City Council. In September, I have this placeholder. This is a topic item, I know, and I think this also ties to some of the things you mentioned, Alec, in terms of water use and whatnot. This discussion on regenerative agriculture. I know that's of big interest to folks here, and I think last time we talked about this, in part we had some other things, again, as I mentioned, that needed to get shifted around. Our open space folks were in the process of hiring an ag specialist, and they were wanting to get that person on board and kind of up to speed before they came to talk to you all about what they're doing and what the role of that person is going to be. I believe they have hired that person, and so I put that in the fall timeframe because I think that should be enough time, hopefully, to get them prepped for that conversation. In October, we are slated to have another update from Platte River Power Authority. Just making sure I don't have anything at the bottom. And then the other thing that happens generally in this time frame, although it keeps getting pushed out later and later in the year, is Boulder County's sustainability tax. We've honed this in quite a bit, but we do always come to this group and talk about what we intend to spend that sustainability tax money on. We are required to get a letter of support from you all. So we will introduce that to you earlier in the fall, and then we'll come back to you probably in the November timeframe to hopefully get a letter of support from you all that we submit with our application. So that'll happen in November. And then the other placeholder item that I need to circle back on is this continued discussion on passive design. So we had someone come a couple months ago, I think it was a while ago now, that talked about passive design and opportunities for incorporating passive design concepts into our code. And folks were interested in having a deeper dive into some opportunities with that. So I put that out in this time frame. And then again, for our new folks, and a reminder for our folks that have been here, a handful of years ago, we decided to cancel our December meeting. It's always right before Christmas. Nobody ever shows up. So we've just made the call to not hold a December meeting. Again, you all can always revisit that in the future if you really want to have that December meeting. But in my many years of being here, it's not a productive meeting, and we don't usually have a quorum. So we would be social hour, which is fine. Do folks have any questions or comments on this? Yeah, Corky.
We talked about this before. Last year we experienced some really interesting legislation in the state level in terms of the land use and zoning. And I'm aware of the fact that the city is working on updating some of the zoning pieces. I believe there's a lot there related with sustainability. I mean, I really like our framework, the community cohesion, resilience, economic vitality. And we have a lot of vulnerabilities in isolated neighborhoods that are directly related with land use and the way the zoning is written. I remember requesting that maybe that should be a subject that at least understand what is changing and how we can contribute to that. I'm, very interested in creating more complete neighborhoods with a lot of services, and right now in a lot of neighborhoods that's illegal because of the zoning law. And that to me is directly at the center of, sustainability and, financial resilience of the average household. We just had serious heat waves in Europe, and most of the fatalities were the most isolated neighborhoods.
Right.
And you can arrange some events and such, but that's not enough for cohesion. It needs to be naturally built into the way the land use is developed.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say I like where your head's at there. Just having the atmospheric background that I do, everybody likes to pick on carbon. But if I talk to somebody who doesn't believe that the Earth is warming, I say, just look at a satellite image of maps. Tell me nothing's changed. And no one can do that. So I think what I'm saying is I agree with you, and the land use is a very important part of what we're trying to do. And you can't just focus on what gets emitted to the atmosphere, but what's happening on the actual surface. So,
Yeah.
I think it's also, we're losing the opportunity to act too. We're growing so fast in this community. We're running out of land.
Mm-hmm.
We're turning over a ton of new soil while there's a ton of land that's not being used. You drive down Main Street and it's all empty parking lots. And so I think we're losing the opportunity to rezone and protect the land we have, use the land we've already developed and aren't using. Those parking lots all in North Main Street, that's a heat trap. I mean, we looked at it 2 weeks ago, we looked at the map. I mean, it's a death trap, and it's also where our unhoused communities are congregating as well as in that heat trap. And so I think there's we talk about this a lot, and I hear city council talking about it a lot. I hear zoning and planning talking about, and then you see these huge developments popping up over by the Home Depot, over on Hover Street, turning over new soil on the same amount of land that's not being used because the businesses aren't engaged in North Longmont. So I think we're losing this opportunity to protect the land we have. And so I'm eager to have that conversation quickly.
Thank you for bringing that forward. I'll get with, and feel free to jump in, Councilmember Popkin. I know I'd be curious to know, you just came off of Planning and Zoning Board. I don't know if this has been a topic that they have discussed there at all. I'd be curious about that, because they are the board that is principally responsible for land use and zoning. And then I have another comment, but
Sure.
you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I can speak to a couple of things here. So first, the Planning and Zoning Commission, as the court rep also knows, is tasked to kind of overseeing, advising council on land use decisions, but also specific development proposals that require planning and zoning either advice or consent or the specific designations of zoning typically happen through the comprehensive planning process. So the last one I think was in 2016 for
That was
Envision
going to be my
Longmont.
secondary comment. So.
Oh, okay. So when we think about kind of a broader philosophy about zoning, typically it's, well, I don't want to say typically, but I'll say where I've seen it done more effectively is when it's as part of a holistic conversation, a systemic conversation, partly because of the very reasons the three of you just spoke to. Right. I believe that the intent is to restart that, to reevaluate Vision Longmont, the comprehensive plan, starting sometime next year-ish. I don't know when specifically there. I recall that this board has previously actually discussed, I think I was virtual for that one, but has previously discussed an interest in wanting to have input in that, and I think that would be not only welcome, but like requested explicitly when we get to that point, and so hopefully we're not too far away from that. Doing that in a vacuum would probably just create kind of a little bit of a random step stool situation to nowhere. So we want them to be productive. The other thing I'll note, which is relevant here, is so I also serve as the chair of the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority, and if that is helpful, I'd be happy to present on that in a future meeting. On what that board is tasked, on what that authority is tasked with doing. It's technically not a board, it's not a commission, it's a separate entity legally. So I'd be happy to present more about that, because that does specifically deal with, to use the legal language, blighted properties in the city under certain Colorado statute that give particular authorities for those types of, for certain actions to deal with those types of properties. Most common ones to think about are that would kind of fall under this umbrella would be like the lower downtown areas, First and Main area. If the sugar mill was in the boundaries of Longmont, that is technically county jurisdiction right now. There are a few other properties, a couple that have come up along North Main. So when we deal with those specific properties as like a reinvestment, redevelopment strategy, that's where that tends to go if there is direction to do so. Otherwise, the broader rezoning of those would go through the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it would actually go through the Envision Longmont or comprehensive planning process, which would go through multiple boards and commissions, including Planning and Zoning, including SAB, and ultimately through City Council for approval. So that would be how we'd evaluate that. What did I miss?
I mean, I guess I wonder too about, it's like, because I hear it and I respect that process. While I also see, the parking lot in front of the unused Hobby Lobby is on sale now. I'm seeing farming properties putting up for sale now because property rates, they want to sell quickly. It's like those properties will be determined before this process ends, and there just isn't that much land left in Longmont. And so that's why I'm wondering if there are ways to accelerate this process, because the other thing is too is like, if there's one thing this community agrees on, it's that it's not developing correct. I mean, the dissatisfaction with how the community is developing is all we agree on. And so that seems like the thing too, is like addressing that sooner rather than later, before we're making commitments that last the next 100 years. Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah, I think let me sit with that a little bit. Let me have some chats with some planning folks. The update to Envision has been delayed several times over, which has been challenging because we've also been delaying the update to the sustainability plan because we want those things to happen together, and there's a lot of recognition of the gaps in both of those plans and how they dovetail those resilience pieces that have really come to the forefront in a way that they weren't in 2016 when we did both of those plans. I have a whole running list of things that I'm just waiting to include. If it does go through next year to kick off that process, it wouldn't be finalized until probably 2027 at the earliest. And so let me see if there are some other interim possibilities. I definitely think the presentation you're talking about would be helpful, especially if there are some other avenues in more specific areas. And then just thinking about how this group can potentially be proactive ahead of the Envision Longmont process of what are some things we would want to consider that then when that process does kick off, we're ready to kind of hand it off and integrate in that process if at all possible. So let me do some thinking and chatting with folks. Maybe you and I can touch base also and kind of come up with an approach for that we can bring back to all. So, yeah.
Also, I'm part of a group in Congress of the Urbanism that we're working on a model adaptation legislation. If you're interested, I can bring what land use elements are significant in terms of the climate adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I can share those with
Yeah.
you if you like.
Maybe we could do those two things potentially together if it makes sense. Can you share that with me and I can have a look at them and then we can strategize on that? Yeah, thank you.
They're very different, but in service of similar thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, that would be helpful. And I'll just note, Daniel, to your point, that part of the reason I was so interested in taking the reins on the Urban Renewal Authority, not only because I professionally work in the brownfield space, but also because of what opportunities that authority has to help shape how and where the city develops and grows, or more aptly redevelops and grows. When we think about sustainability and land use, reusing existing properties and developed spaces is, I would argue, probably more sustainable than developing on greenfields when you don't have to.
We shouldn't be turning soil while there's land that's not being used, that has been developed. Yeah.
All right. Great. I look forward to that too because I think there's so many different sustainability aspects that can come together in this conversation.
So we could ask Laura maybe to do that too, but because I'm the chair of that, I'm happy to take that off her plate. So
I think that'd be great.
Maybe we just copy her and let her know that like this was requested. She's welcome to join, but like also
I think that's great. She's still pretty new and getting her feet kind of under her and stuff too. So
yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, that is it for that. Chair, I hand it back to you.
All right. Well, the next item up on the agenda is items from the board. For those of you that are new, this is your opportunity if you have anything you want to raise.
Wait a minute. I am so sorry. I don't know why this didn't get on here. Can I make a revision to the agenda?
I think we'll allow it.
Mid-meeting? I'm sorry. I don't know how this got missed. It was on my work plan spreadsheet. But your position statement for fueling stations is going to council on Tuesday, the 22nd.
Okay.
We had put it on the consent agenda, and then it just got moved to the general business, which means they would love to hear from one of you.
Great.
So I need a kind volunteer.
Could you give me a
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Like what is
no.
Are you volunteering?
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, for our new folks, a few months back, I think it was in March, Council directed the Sustainability Advisory Board to put together a position statement on how the city might want to approach future fueling stations, gas stations in particular. And should we consider recommendations around, environmental and public health, development and proximity to other stations, whatnot.
Zoning to feelings.
Some people get
Oh,
touchy.
yeah.
A lot of feelings.
Fueling, yes.
Makes
Very touchy subject.
So this group worked over the last couple of months to put that together. We submitted to City Council. They wanted to see that position statement. And then it'll be incumbent upon them to decide if they want to move forward on any of that, in which case there's quite a bit more vetting that would need to happen. They're pretty high-level recommendations at this point in time. So it is going to Council on Tuesday. Initially, again, we were just going to share it as more informational, and then it got moved to the general business section, which is typically the presentation and discussion section of City Council. So with that, it'd be lovely if someone would raise their hand and say, yes, I will come as the representative of the Sustainability Advisory Board and present our information. I can happily share the slides that I've put together in the past that are pretty basic, and then it's just kind of walking through your memo.
Is it presenting the memo? Is it answering questions? Is it all of the above?
I think it would be all of the above. It's primarily presenting the memo. We would help you with questions.
Yes, we would.
Normally I would say yes, but I would sit this one out just because I have no background on this one.
If you want to come and observe, it's always a good time.
This is
And if-
July 22nd?
July, yes,
This
Tuesday,
coming
this
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yes.
7 p.m.
I'm flying back from Chicago just for this. No joke, because I fly to Ohio.
I mean, I'd be happy to do it because I wrote it.
There you go.
So I'd be happy to take responsibility for anything.
I would
that's
certainly
written.
going to recommend Daniel if
But
I'm
I'm
available.
Okay. And I am I would have to skip book club, but I also didn't read the book, so.
So you're
This is
welcome.
my out.
We're helping you out there.
So yes, happy
Just
to.
a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. So.
All right, excellent. I will connect with you. Becky and I will both be there, so you won't be on your own. But thank you all. Thank
Should we have matching outfits? Do we
Probably.
There's choreography to learn.
choreography? Do I bring my tap shoes?
Excellent. Thank you for letting me throw that in. I apologize for
Perfect.
getting that on the agenda.
That's good. And thank you, Daniel, for
Yes.
stepping up. Appreciate it. So on to the items from the board. So Jeff and Alec, as new members, just wanted to clarify for you, this is an opportunity for anything that's not on the agenda that you want to bring to the table for us to talk about. Another important thing that we do in this is when we have members of the public here, we have the public invited to be heard section. We aren't allowed to engage with them directly, but if we want to follow up and have discussion on anything that they introduced into the meeting, we certainly are allowed to hear. So that's the purpose of it. Anyway, so we've got this items from the board. Does anybody have anything that they want to
I
bring?
could just ask for clarity there.
Yeah.
Did you say we can't interact with anybody who comes
Correct.
until
Yeah.
after the meeting space?
We cannot interact with
Here.
them.
We can
So
interact
they get the
among
chance to
ourselves
speak
on
to
that
us,
topic.
and then we can talk about whatever we want.
Yeah, so during the public invited to be heard
Yeah.
portion, they have 5 minutes to present whatever issue to you all. And then there's not really any dialogue that happens between you and the member. But however, if you wanted to discuss something at the board later on, this would be the time that you would bring that up.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, Ethan.
So last month, Councilman Popkin said that he had additional questions for Platte River Power Authority about the presentation they gave, and he just suggested that the board consider centralizing and compiling any additional questions to send to Platte River for review and response. I remember that because I read the minutes, but I'm happy to volunteer to compile questions that we could send to Platte River.
Yeah.
What
You can
about-
give you a little more context about
Yes, what would the question be about?
Jeff?
Well, specifically last month, Platte River presented on virtual power plants. So I think there's probably some questions about that, but also I had a lot of other questions that were more general about air quality and grid reliability and so forth.
I don't know how to help right now. I mean, it sounds interesting. I think I still need more information, but yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. You can go back to last month's meeting and watch the video to get the context of their presentation. I encourage you to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy for you to compile it. We can send comments.
Probably the easiest way would be to send them to me, and then I can send them to Ethan for compilation.
Okay. And we can maybe.
That way everything is open according to our open records law and everything, so.
Perfect.
I would recommend also, since the board has undertaken similar exercise
Yes.
within the past few years, that you don't want to repeat questions that you've already asked, just because it requires staff time at Flat River to come up with those responses to you. So I would request that you take a look at that list of questions first, and then, if you want to focus on the topic at hand, which was virtual power plants, that would also be helpful. As Lisa mentioned, that it will be likely that they'll come back yet this year for other updates. And
Since we have, it's a great suggestion there, Susan. Since we have some new folks, and it's been I'm new to the board even since Flat River Power Authority presented to this. I think that was November-ish. Was that November of last year? October.
I can't remember when it was, but I can find the
If
questions that
yeah,
were
if we
sent
could find that and
before.
just reshare that with the
Reshare
group
that
before
with
we
everyone.
do the question generation, that would be, I
Yeah.
think, perhaps the most efficient.
Yes.
I think that happened 2 or 3 years ago.
I was gonna say
I think it was a couple of years ago.
Okay, so the one, first one, yeah, then the other, okay.
That will probably help with some context too for
Yeah.
new folks.
That's just the City of Longmont website? Where's the, I don't know.
Those were shared among the sustainability board at the time, so I'll look back from the ones that were
Okay.
questions that were compiled and answers that we received, and then redistribute those to this group. again.
And all these are YouTube, is that what it is?
Yes.
For now? Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. Any other items from the board? Items from council.
Yeah, not a ton today for y'all. I appreciate the questions here, and I will make sure to report back to City Council that this board is interested in engaging in land use and neighborhood planning conversations in the long term, or whenever term actually makes sense there. Just for the new members, so my role here is largely to be informational support based on clarifying what council direction might be for a specific item. Also to pay attention and listen and learn from the discussion here and report back to City Council to the extent that it informs future direction we might give. The general interplay between the advisory board and City Council is, other than some of the informational discussions and operational updates that are happening, when there are certain issues, the City Council would like to hear from this group of people who are more informed on this topic or these topics, given the breadth of sustainability and resilience, that we would request specific input and advice from you all to help inform our decision making. That's kind of the interplay here and my role, so just wanted to clarify that for everyone. No specific direction here, but I also serve on the board advisory board and just wanted to share with folks who might be curious. Last Tuesday, I went down to Centennial Airport for an electric aviation show, and so I did. So we got to see test flights of electric aircraft. Spoiler alert: they kind of look like regular planes, just a different engine set up there, and got to.
Quiet?
They sound like a large fan. So like think about this like. It's not, you don't hear the engine noise, you hear the propulsion of air,
Gotcha.
right? Like there's, if you turn a ceiling fan up pretty high, even if it's electric rotor, like you're still going to hear some
Yeah.
noise. But yes, I mean, relatively speaking, compared to the other planes that were also taxiing and taking off from like the same area of similar size, they were vastly lighter. And obviously, and they were actually powered by a little mobile electric battery trailer that this company had towed in to just recharge the planes. At the time, I think this current model was about 1 hour of flight for 1 hour of charge, and they use approximately, it's like the DC fast electric vehicle charger is I think the same thing. Like they were using the same plug, same compatibility of infrastructure there. So it was mostly there just to learn. Actually, it was entirely there just to learn. And went there with a local pilot and Councilwoman Diane Christ as well. So we were all there. Just thought that would be of interest to this group.
Yeah.
I have some pictures if you're curious, but again, they look like planes. They just have a different engine and different power supply. Trying to think what else is on the radar here. No, I think those were the main things I wanted to share here, and just welcome to the new board members.
Can I ask you something? Last month you said that you were going to talk with the board chair about consistent board procedure.
Yes.
Did you have that discussion?
We have not had the discussion yet. Schedules have not aligned yet for that.
And I was going to say, my business is like energy generation, so that's what I work for. And it's like renewables, and there's a whole thing going on right now. So it'll be interesting with this electrification of aviation, what the generation source will be. This could come with the PRP kind of question, because there's talk of kind of opening up a lot of these coal and natural gas plants back up and then expanding their generation capabilities. So electric is great when clean is generating it. So these are just all things to think about.
Yeah, it's a great point there, and just for I think it'll be helpful for the set of PRPA packets to make their way around to the group that's now new, just to give you that context on kind of what the power generation supply is. In this case, these planes were being charged from mobile trailers for the sake of the demonstration, but I think the intent would be for these to have kind of grid connected chargers, so then you're powering based on what the grid makeup is and composition there, to your point there.
Great.
Other questions? Otherwise, I'll just also note that outside of my council role specifically, I'll be going to the Aspen Ideas Climate Summit next week in Chicago, and then I'll actually presenting at that something, and then I'll be at the National Brownfields Conference in Chicago a couple weeks later. Not wearing a city hat there, but also paying attention to trends and stuff. So if I learn anything there that'll be relevant, especially on like the redevelopment planning and some of the land use pieces of that, this will be my 4th Brownfield conference that I'll be at and presenting at. So happy to talk with folks on the side if you're curious.
Excellent. Well, in the board packet, there were some attachments. There's no action on that, but make sure you read those. In the future, read them too. That takes us to the end of our agenda. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Okay. All those in favor? All right. That goes everybody. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.